So I'm going to consider this to be a quorum, and we're going to continue on with the meeting. There's not a whole lot of meaningful, substantive, unfinished business, and there's the new business is going to be a problem to discuss, but we'll at least get there. But we do have, and I do want to make progress, in particular, Bob, on the governance document review. That's something that of some degree of substance we can accomplish today. So anyway, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 1:16 with the two of us, as well as Jeff being, not Jeff, I'm sorry, Josh being with us. I saw, it looked like Greg Ellison had signed on earlier. Has he disappeared on us?
He's still here.
Yeah, I'm just going to tape in the background, guys, but I'm glad you got enough people there. Nice to see everybody, or sort of.
Okay. Anyway, we're called to order. I don't have any additions to the agenda. Any additions to the agenda, Bob, that you'd be interested in making?
No, I have none.
Okay. Then let's move on to the minutes. Minutes were previously distributed. There is a typo on the minutes. The first page at the bottom, last sentence, should be the comments were forwarded, ED, to the liaison. I'll make that change. I'll proofread it again just to make sure there aren't any other typos in there, that there's something that needs to be revised in a non-substantive matter. And if there aren't any other comments, we'll just consider them approved and move on.
Yeah, I read the minutes of the meeting. I missed the typo, but to me, everything there is correct. So I approve the minutes. Okay, just a brief explanation about the minutes. I've added a lot of material in the past, probably would not have been there. And instead of trying to summarize in the minutes something that's been done, like sending comments, actually action items to a liaison, or comments to elections, that putting in the minutes that they've been sent, that's also in the minutes, but I've also attached communications that go out as a result of the meeting. I've attached communications, and I intend to continue to do that so that we've got more expansive documentation of what's been done. The other thing on the governance document review, I've attached the one that was completed, that you completed, Bob, after the meeting. You generally have an updated one available within a couple, 3 days after the meeting. Rather than attach the one that we had going into the meeting, I'll attach the one that is updated as a result of the meeting to the minutes. So that's a change from past practices, and that's the reason why these minutes are probably much more, they're thicker, if nothing else, than they have been in the past. And I'm going to try to keep doing that as we go forward. Unless Josh or Greg have public comments, and Greg, feel free to public comment if you want to. I'll mark that off as no public comments. Anybody, any comments? Okay, I'll assume no, and we'll keep going. Under unfinished business, just a brief comment here on the bylaws work group. That group did meet yesterday afternoon, basically 1 o'clock, virtual meeting, of course. The work group has at least preliminarily, I'm going to use the word preliminarily made it through section 5 of the bylaws in the bylaws group review. That's basically the meat of the bylaws from the standpoint of the kind of review that we're doing now. The remainder of the bylaws are not likely to result, the review is not likely to result in much
recommendation for amendment. Now, that's to be determined, obviously. But we are through the first 5 sections. And Doug Parks, the chair, has, since the meeting yesterday, published to the members of the group. That's myself, Doug, Camilla, as well as the chair of the Communications Advisory Committee, Jennifer Rhines, I think is a proper description of the chair. Doug has distributed to the 4 of us, well, to 3 plus himself, of course, a review of where we are and the changes that we are looking at to be proposed, which those proposed changes, I'm going to refer to them as, will be coming to us. I have just barely looked at it. I need to make my response to Doug's input. And at some point in time, after he gets the input from the other 3 committee members, he will be sending that over to our committee. And I would expect that to happen in not necessarily in the next couple of days, but over the next week to 2 weeks or so. He may hold it until the next work group meeting, which is going to be in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from Monday. But at any rate, our committee will be getting an input from the work group in the near future. And as soon as I get it, I'm going to send it out to our committee members and not hold on to it until we get to our next meeting and everybody gets a first look at it. At that point in time, it'll come to each committee member. Of course, the liaison will already have it as soon as I get it, so we can begin to review and be prepared to start work on it at our next meeting. Now, whether we need to be scheduling special meetings in between our regularly scheduled meeting, that's a topic that we can consider when the appropriate time comes. I don't see it as needed to be discussed today. But anyway, that's the short version of what's going on with the work group, the bylaws work group, and where we stand. And what we can see is the future, and in relatively immediate future, we will be having in hand work to be started on our bylaws part of the amendment effort. Is that, Bob, you got any particular questions on where we are on that?
Yeah, the only question I would have is, on the changes they make, are they going to mark up a copy or something so we can compare them and get their input?
We're expecting to get either suggested exact wording or the kind of wording that they would want us to be considering. It's not going to be something like, well, you need to look at section 5.03A or something like that and come up with a revision to it. We can expect to see suggested wording. I think we will be seeing suggested wording.
Okay.
That we will work with and come back with how we think about that, or what other wording we think would be more appropriate.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, moving on from that one to the agenda item on the MO6 issues. The amendments include what was communicated to the elections committee regarding the items that we had brought up. One was the duplicate ballot situation. The other was the additional candidates situation. And they did discuss those at their meeting, which was also a virtual meeting. I'm not quite sure that there was an understanding that there's a conflict with how duplicate ballots were accounted for or precluded, if I can put it that way. A difference between the way it was done in the last election and the way the resolution states. So that may need some follow-up there. The item on the additional candidates, where we had a difference between how the board publicized the need for additional candidates and when the cutoff date was for additional candidates, that differed from what's in M06, was also discussed. And I think it can be said that the election committee, obviously I can't speak for them, but the election committee was of the understanding that the correct view of the cutoff date was what is in M06. Now, I can also say that in the bylaws group meeting yesterday, that was also a topic. And I believe that it's correct to say that the understanding that the bylaws group understanding is that the M06 provision of the third Friday in June being the cutoff was the proper interpretation of the cutoff date, and that it was acceptable under the bylaws provision as it stands now, and that the announcement of an additional candidates period, if required by the number of candidates that actually announced initially, is responsibility of the board. And this will be the responsibility of the board to accurately state so the cutoff date when an announcement is made. So that's a long-winded way of saying at this point in time, the resolution cutoff date of the third Friday in June is the way it should go. And we'll just have to see what happens in the next, if and when there's another announcement of, or not announcement, another instance in which additional candidates are appropriate or the opportunity is appropriate and what announcement is made. But at this point in time, I think it's accurate to say that the resolution stands as it is, and it's expected to be followed in any appropriate additional candidate circumstance. So that's just a summary of that item from the last meeting, considering it as unfinished business.
Okay.
The next three items are FO2, FO3, and FO4, and the purpose of them being on the agenda is I'm going to have to follow up. What I will do is follow up with an email message to Camilla to make certain, which I may not have done initially, is make certain that the FO2, FO3, FO4 comments that went to her after the last meeting were intended to be board action items from us to the board through her as our liaison. And I'm not sure I made that. I'm not sure that the communication made that clear, but I intend to follow up with another communication with regard to that, not changing what we initially communicated, that F02 needs to be reviewed. That's the budget resolution for reasons stated in the communication. Same with F03. It's not so much that F03 needs to be reviewed; it's that the reports have been showing drainage as a separate reserve fund, and that's not documented in the reserve resolution as it should be. in accordance with the bylaws. The FO4 is a little bit different situation, and that my communication is going to reflect that we're not simply looking for the report in F04, because in the last board meeting, the president deemed the required report to have been satisfied by the assessments discussion, or report rather, of the treasurer at the board meeting. That's all well and good in our pandemic circumstances that we have, for there to be a meeting as called out in F04 to review assessments delinquency strategy is probably impractical. It was probably impractical a year ago. And before that, it was probably impractical or difficult because of management changes that were occurring. Next year, it's not going to be that way. It may not be necessary to have that report the way it's written in the resolution. It may tend to be a report that comes out that nobody much looks at, puts away, and okay, continue on, because it talks about reviewing the policies for collecting delinquencies and what changes need to be made. Maybe a different kind of review needs to be done. And I'm going to just insert my own personal view here, that some point in time, at least once a year, somebody needs to come up and stand up and say something in detail about delinquencies and what we're doing about delinquencies, more so than just looking at what's the percentage that we've collected of our assessments through our annual charge through the year. Whether it's the treasurer himself can make a report of one kind or another. It doesn't have to be a whole long half-hour report, but a review of the delinquency situation, I believe, is appropriate at some point in time during the year, and probably the March time frame, as in the current resolution, is about the right period of time. But that's so be it. That the point I will be making in my communication is that the paragraph that calls for this report cannot stand the way it is and not be accomplished. You're going to have to do something. Delete it entirely or revise it to have something that's more meaningful and can be accomplish something and be informative both to the board as well as the membership. I'm standing here kind of, I know I'm up on a platform and giving a speech, but I think it's important that we maintain the integrity of the resolutions. Just don't let them slide and be ignored, because I'm a little. I don't want them to be dismissed. I don't want to be provisions just dismissed and we continue on. Anyway, Bob, do you have anything you want to add to that refute? Or I don't want to just keep talking myself here.
No, I think on the delinquency, important thing is what's the follow through, and it should be well documented and followed up on. The rest of it, why have something published if you're not going to do it?
Yeah, let's have something meaningful or get rid of it entirely. We don't want these resolutions to fall into a completely outdated and not followed kind of situation. I don't want to go back over ancient history, but when the resolution review effort was begun, goes back to 2009, really got started about then into 2010. I forgot how many resolutions were just simply outright canceled because they had no more meaning. They were topics that no longer applied in the operations of the association. I think there was somewhere in the vicinity of 65 resolutions, and over the next from 2009 through 2012 thereabouts. Over that period of time, approximately 65 resolutions were cut down to whatever it was, 37, 38. There's been one or two resolutions added since then through the process of either outright cancellation because they no longer had any meaning, or there was a combination of resolutions where you could put instead of splitting up topics into more than one resolution, that it was appropriate to put one or two or three resolutions together in a single resolution. I don't want us to get to this X number of resolutions, some of which no longer exist or no longer need to exist or are worthless as written. So that's enough, I think, of my discussion on this. Let's move on to new business, and I don't think this is one we're going to be able to accomplish between you and I, Bob. What I indicated in the email that was sent out with the agenda in the minutes of the last meeting is that there's an individual who has expressed an interest in this committee, joining this committee, but the individual has work time restrictions, if I can put it that, or limitations. Because of the nature of the full-time employment, I think is accurate to express it, and would not be able to meet earlier than 4 o'clock. I personally do not have any particular meeting time or day of the week, for that matter, other than literally the occasional medical appointment of one kind or another, which don't occur on regular not regular weekdays, but occur on regular days of the week or times of the day. They occur whenever they're scheduled relatively well in advance. So I'm personally flexible. The only not only concern, but a concern I would have is that when if we were to schedule, it's one thing to have virtual meetings. You can have them, I'm not going to say easier, but they perhaps are a lot more flexible schedule-wise than the traditional in-person meetings that we've generally had over at the admin building in a conference room over there. But at some point in time, hopefully not too far in the future, we're going to be able to go back to that kind of a meeting situation. And I don't know what kind of restrictions there would be on later in the day meetings, or for that matter, Saturday meetings situation. But Bob, what kind of thoughts do you have on that? In order to really resolve this, we need to talk about it just in general, without any consideration of perhaps someone else joining the committee. We do need to discuss this in case somebody has some better day and time situation for meetings. But what kind of thoughts do you have on this, Bob?
Well, mine are pretty simple. If you can pick a day of the week or a time of the day and be consistent, then I have the same problem you do. I don't have a lot of medical appointments, but I usually schedule them 2 to 4 months out, sometimes 6 months out. And as long as I know what the schedule is, then I can schedule around them for appointments. But I don't like to change appointments at the last minute. That doesn't work.
That's out of the question for me. You cancel an appointment, you may be 6 months before you get the next one.
That's true, because some of my appointments now are 6 months out, and I plan vacations and things like that around those appointments because the appointments are important. But as far as weekends, I prefer not, but I can make myself available for a weekend a month. It's going to take a weekend to get some people on the board or on the committee that are willing to put some time in.
And Josh, you still here? Can
Yeah.
Josh? Okay, Josh, do you have any idea what kind of situation would be? I'm going ahead in time or back in time, however you want to phrase it, to when we had meetings, whether board meetings, committee meetings, or whatever in a normal life. What kind of do you have any idea what kind of situation would be if a committee like ours met on a Saturday?
I don't think there's any restrictions. I know the aquatics committee has regularly met around 6 o'clock at night. So there are committees that meet after hours. I don't know of any that meet on a weekend, but the community center is open as long as you booked enough in advance with Debbie Donahue. You ought to be able to get a meeting space.
Okay, that's good information. I'm probably going to have to communicate with Keith and Camilla and get their input on how they feel about that. I don't have a problem. Again, assuming there wouldn't be an evening conflict on a medical appointment. I think I can feel fairly comfortable with that. And any other conflict would almost be something that came up not unexpected, but came up somewhat at the last minute. I Bob, what would you think if we were to, like Josh, as Josh said, the aquatics committee has met like 6 o'clock in the evening. Would you have any problem with something like that?
I don't have a problem with that as long as I said we can plan far enough in advance.
Okay, that's.
And I'd prefer to do it on an evening rather than a Saturday or Sunday if we could avoid it.
I will put Saturday and Sunday meetings not under consideration. Let's put it that way. I don't think we should try to be going that direction. There may be some absolute emergency of some kind. We might try it, but we'll leave the weekend meetings to the board.
Yeah. No.
All right. Let's leave it at that. And I'll make an attempt to otherwise get the input from Keith and Camilla on how they feel about it. All right, let's get the governance document out.
Okay. Which copy do you, let me see what you put for the meetings and what the last one was, so I can work on one or the other. Did you send the first one I send to you or the second one?
I think pretty sure it's the second one. I'm pretty sure I got the second one. For example,
Yeah,
on the first page under C5, it's got yellow highlighting. This advisory committee was suspended by the board at the 9/9.
yeah, I got that one.
Okay, that's the one I got in front of me to work off of.
Okay, I got the same one then.
All right, I noted when we were going through the review the first time after the meeting, I missed the articles of amendment and restatement up at the top one. That effective date is 2013, not 2018.
2013?
Yeah.
How the heck did I get that one?
Well, if you close in the loops on the left-hand side, you'll get an 8. So depends on whether you had your glasses on or not.
That's got to be sloppy fingers.
I want to let's drop down to the B category resolutions. All of them are well past, well, not well past. October is not that far past, but they're past their review date, and they're all board responsible. I think we probably don't want to just pick them all up and send them out to Camille and say the board's got to review these. But there are 3 on here that some comments can be made, and one in particular that I want to send out for review, and that's the B07 petitions. We're in the, and I didn't make any comment on this earlier, but there is a referendum that's being planned for the capital spending provision in the bylaws as a result of the petition that was submitted at the board meeting a year and a half ago now. As a result of the litigation involved, the result was that there's going to be a referendum, and the initial preparations are being made for that with, I think, a to be announced situation is how it exists right now. But at any rate, the wording of the question in the petitions was at the heart of the litigation, and that involves B07 and the content of B07. And I think what we should be doing is sending to Camilla for the board saying that petition, that resolution needs to be reviewed, and if necessary with the attorney regarding how it's worded and whether there should be any changes made to the resolution because of, not based on, but because of the litigation that's now been completed. So that's one that I do want to send out. I do think we should send out that send out that resolution to the board for its review and the reasons for it. That's an action for one of the actions for the B type, B category resolutions.
Okay.
Now, I'll keep talking here for a minute. A comment can be made for B05 and B08, and I'll try to keep this short and understandable. B08, and this comment I think can be put in B08, is under review by a board work group. And something's going to happen. I have no inside information whatsoever.
Okay.
But so I think something. This is just for comment, not necessarily on the review sheet. Something's going to happen. Provisions in it are going to be revised, or the whole thing's going to go away and be canceled. The third option would be that nothing changes, which I don't think is going to be the option. The option is going to be somewhere in between it going away entirely or be revised as a result of the work group's efforts. So that can be said to be on hold for the board B08 work group review. would be a comment that can be put there.
Okay, so something like on hold under review by the board work group.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
Now, B05 is the conflict of interest, and the reason why I've got a notation there is that B08 also has information regarding conflicts of interest. And it's not so much a case of there being a conflict, we're using conflict again, conflict between the provisions in B05 and the conflict of interest provisions in B08 they're expressed differently. And I didn't make copies to read from sitting here, but it's an unnecessary situation to have two documents, two resolutions having provisions in it on the same topic, but having it expressed differently. So there needs to be a reconciliation of what's in B05 with what's in B08 or vice versa. And what I would want to do is, along with the B07 communication to our liaison for the review of B07, is also to point out that B05 and B08 discuss conflicts of interest differently, and they need to be reconciled. Either change B05 to coincide with B08 or vice versa. But at any rate, that again, I'm not going to say the association's going to fall apart, because that doesn't happen. But again, let's make sure we're being consistent with our resolutions, and we keep them reasonably up to date and consistent with one another. So those three resolutions: B05, B07, and B08 doesn't require anything specifically input from us, other independent of the comment on five.
Right.
Those three, I would have those comments that we would put in there. As far as the due dates for review of the others, I'm satisfied with just leaving it the way it is, and we don't try to bite off everything, take care of everything at one time, and kind of overload where obviously the board has a lot of things that it has to take attention to one way or another, and just not throw out there 8 different resolutions, say you got to review them. You need them to review. So stick with the 3 that essentially 3, but 2 plus the B08, and leave the others. Just leave the due dates are passed. Well, okay, we got to catch up. We know that.
Let me ask you a question. We have 3 columns on there. We have effective date, last review date, and schedule review date. What's the difference now between the effective date and the last review date?
That's a good.
Go ahead.
That's a good point. There are places down here where I don't know about in the B, where the effective date is such that the next review date can be revised. For example, skipping along ahead here, the effective date of C02 is 5/2/2020. So 2 years can be moved out to May 2022.
Okay.
We have that situation in a handful of places further on, but I'm looking at the Bs. I don't think we have that, do we? No, we don't. Well, go ahead.
Let me ask the question differently. the effective date is the last time the board agreed to a change. I guess the last review date would be the last time the committee reviewed it and decided it didn't require a change.
That would be right. The last review date would be the last time the committee has looked at it. That's true.
Right. Okay, so it does have value then. So what we could do though, for any of them that had the last review date, if it is later than the effective, if it was earlier than the effective date, we could put those in as the last review date.
That's right. That's a good point.
I could upgrade all of those at least so we know the last time that it was reviewed, which
Yeah.
if it's consistent with the board's approval.
Yeah. And again, I'm looking at C02. That would move, that would take out the April 18 last review date and substitute the effective date when it was last amended.
Yeah, in other words, it would be May 20.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. When it's amended, it's been reviewed.
Well, I mean, it was good going through. Your suggestion last month at the meeting was really good because now we got a basis for adjusting them, and then we'll have the opportunity to go and try to schedule them with the various committees based on a realistic due date.
Yeah, that's true. It's not right now. It's not just a case of looking at the only the schedule review date as we show it here. For example, the C01 was amended on in September 2020. Well, actually, that can be moved out. The May 21 I guess we were probably using it. There's no reason for it to be other than 2 years. I'm not sure I can tell from what we had here, but that could be the last review would be September 2020. And we could make that September 2022 for the next review.
Okay. Now, let me go through all of the last review and match them up to the effective dates. And then from there, you can take a look at whether it's a 1 year or 2 year between reviews.
Okay, right. That's a good way for us to approach that. We don't need to try to sit here and try to figure it out now.
No, that's what I thought. I could easily do that when I update your 3 memos that I'm going to add for comments.
Okay.
For B5, B7, and B8.
Okay. Down in the C's.
Okay.
I got some comments in here, but they deal with the review dates. That may or may not change. Let me skip over that. Let's see. C03, the effective date and the review date basically match. In October last year was the review date. The next review date. That committee is in fact meeting, and I will send out I think you can put out that I'm to send out a request for review from that committee.
Okay.
Because that committee is quite active, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
The same thing applies for the Communications Advisory Committee. They're meeting as well.
Okay, so same note there, then you're going to contact the committee chair for review.
Yeah, now, I'm not sure what to say about the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee. There are no minutes on the website for them, period. So I somewhere, and I'm not sure where. Josh, are you still listening to us?
Yes.
Do you hear anything about the strategic planning committee? Are they meeting some way?
I believe they're meeting in person at the admin building, but I could be mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot where it probably, I guess, was in the meeting yesterday of the bylaws work group. Someone, whether I think it was Camilla or Doug, made reference to something about the strategic plan committee, and I didn't necessarily understand what was said. But it sounded like they must be, in some context, or meeting, or at least somebody's meeting with somebody to think about something. I'll go ahead and send out a communication for them to review their resolution as well. That committee has undergone a revision in the approach of how they're used, and it's time for them to look at what's going on or will go on, and decide that's what the resolution says or doesn't say. So I'll put me down for sending something out on that.
Okay, so now we got you for C3 and C6.
Yeah.
Okay.
On C08, the elections committee, I don't want to get too far ahead of the bylaws work group. We don't need to be sending anything out on this to the elections committee.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's likely there's going to be some kind of a change to the bylaws regarding the search committee. And one of the, or at least one of the possibilities is that the elections committee could be tasked with the promotion and publicizing of an upcoming election of directors, and publicizing the availability of, or not availability, but a request for people considering and candidacy and making application to become a candidate for election to the board of directors. And if a consideration would be to add that to one of the functions of the elections committee, which would necessarily involve changing C08. You put in there something like hold pending bylaws work group.
For the election.
Yeah, for C08, yeah. And again, I'm not trying to get ahead of the bylaws work group or our effort as well, subsequent to what we get from them. But something's going to happen to the search committee. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think I'm getting ahead of anybody on that. The executive committee, we're not there yet, so we don't need to worry about it.
Okay.
As far as I know, the Environmental and Natural Assets Committee is meeting. I think put me down to send something out to them. At least
Okay.
the worst they can do is tell me to go away and leave them alone. Hang on, let me turn my page here.
Okay.
The Golf Advisory Committee, Josh, I'm going to keep asking you questions here. Is it the last minutes for the Golf Advisory Committee are October of last year? Is that committee meeting with any regularity? Do you know?
That I'm not aware of, but let me shoot a text and see if I can get a quick answer.
Okay. The same would apply to marine activities.
the same notes that we're going to contact them to review it.
Well, no, we're what the question is on golf, marine activities, and recreation and parks, as well as aquatic. Well, Josh said aquatics was meeting, or no, has
No,
met.
I'm not certain they are, but in the past they have met on weeknights.
Oh, okay,
I'm not sure
all
if
right.
they're currently active or not.
Yeah, the last minutes for aquatics are March of 20. The last minutes for recreation and parks are February 2020. The last minutes for marine activities is September 2019. I'm not, so
Just don't put any notes on those.
let's leave that.
Okay.
There's no sense that, if people aren't meeting and aren't going to be meeting anytime soon, well, if they're not meeting at all, there's no sense asking them what they're doing.
Yes.
All right. The only thing that's not commented on so far on the Fs is the F01, and that's overdue. Bob, let's just hold off on that.
Okay.
I'm already asking for something on 2, 3, and 4, so let's just not add to the pile.
Hey, Jim, I'm told the golf committee is active, but they haven't met in a while just because it's winter.
Okay. Bob, go ahead and put down a send out on that.
Okay.
And we'll leave the other 3 in a for the time being to be determined. Actually, one of them has a scheduled review date of February 2022. I'm not sure why that is, but that may be a misprint.
Is that a 2-year? Is that a 2-year normal review? The golf committee?
No, I'm looking at marine activities.
Oh, okay. You're looking at marine activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. We're not there on golf.
Yeah.
So,
golf doesn't need that one.
Yeah, it's the one that's in question is the marine activities, and they haven't, as far as publishing minutes, they haven't done much. That probably should have been February 19th, 19 instead of 22. I don't know why it would have been 22.
Yeah.
Let's just hold off on that for the time being.
Okay.
Let's just go on down to.
Do you want me to fix the date on the schedule review, though?
Yeah, let's fix the date.
So you want to put that July 19?
Might as well.
Okay.
I don't have any reason to say no.
Okay.
The only way it could be different would have been if it was, well, it says July 17. I was going to say it was mistyped, but it says July 17, not something else.
Right.
All right, I'm ready to go down to M01.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest that we move that review date out to move it out 6 months to July. M01, to give it a longer period of time to be in place and see how it's working.
Okay.
I think it got off to a little bit of a slow start in particular because of the pandemic. And I'm willing to let that run out another 6 months or so.
Okay.
And also we had it as a 1-year review time. That may be too short to begin with. Maybe 2 years would have been better anyway, but let's put it out as July this year and
Okay.
give us some more time to work.
Okay.
The amenity policies, that's November of 21. Okay, so we're not there yet. We're okay. The M04 maintenance lots, that's one of those that the effective date affects the last review date, which in turn affects the review dates, and we're not at the review date now.
Okay.
Okay. Next two items are going to be M05 and M07. Those are old entries there that are obviously no longer any good. And I was going to bring that up in the meeting, but what I will do is add that to my communication to our liaison, that these two resolutions need to be reviewed. One is of interest to the police chief, and the other is I think in the past it's been perhaps passed on to the aquatics, not aquatics, but marine activities. But it is a board policy resolution, so it should go to the board for review. Now I see there was a reference to be the liaison intended to forward it to Colby Phillips. Well, that's obviously old and no longer effective. So what I'm going to do, again, I will advise the liaison that these two resolutions need to be reviewed by the board.
That would be which two now, so I can mark
M05 and M07.
Okay, for board review. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna. I'm not going to completely kick the can down the road on M08 yet, but I'm really on the verge of saying that can be canceled or should be canceled as being. What that does is call for a review of these manuals on a periodic basis. Some of them, for example, the architectural review guidelines has been not only reviewed but revised at least once, and there's the short-term rental addition is under consideration, may not occur, or at least may not very soon, but it's been reviewed. I believe the employee handbook has as well. The financial management procedures and financial management policy manuals are under discussion. And a couple of these others are kind of in the background. I will probably at the next meeting simply come up with a good reason or a good justification for canceling that resolution as a good idea, but impractical and difficult to actually fulfill the requirements as it's written, and that those departments or who have responsibility for manuals that govern parts of their operation, they're responsible for keeping them up to date. We're not going to have a resolution that tries to come along behind them and ask them to make sure it's up to date and document that they've reviewed it and that sort of thing. It's just not practical to do that. I don't like to do that kind of thing, and I thought that originally this resolution was appropriate, that we maintain control of our operating documentation within the association, but then again, reality may not be that that works. And if it doesn't work, don't try to do it. Anyway, I don't want to keep kicking it down the down the road. I'll do something. I will do what I just said, right or wrong, at the next meeting. Recommend that it be canceled.
Okay, so I'll take the yellow off, leave the note there for this month's report. And then next month we'll take it off.
Okay.
We'll change it. Okay.
Yeah. M09 is a search committee. You put in there something to the effect that the search committee or the bylaws work group is reviewing search committee status. That something will happen to M09 as well. Either it'll be revised in some manner of details and no longer become a search committee, or deleted in its entirety. I don't expect it to stay the way it is. Let's put it that way. So it's under review by the status of the committee is under review. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So basically, it's just be under review by the bylaws committee.
Yeah, that's good. All right, Bob, I don't have anything else for our meeting.
Okay, I don't either. I'll get this out to you probably tomorrow.
Okay, no problem.
And then I'll send it out, and then you can tell me if I missed anything or you want to do any wordsmithing.
Speaking of working on the weekend.
That's different.
Okay, guys, anybody else on here want to say anything? Well, I guess the silence is
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
All right, I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.